How's it going? Quick video on mold and mycotoxins. Okay, you've probably heard a lot about this, especially if you've been on my page or similar ones, but I wanted to break it down fairly simple. I won't go too scientific. Certain things are way over my head and truly over everybody's head in this microbiology world. But this is hopefully a helpful template with all the language going around where you get a mycotoxin test in the body, then you're gonna be testing your home and all this different stuff. And I'll talk about those nuances with testing as well. But think about it like this. The mold type is kind of the main name of the mold. So let's just say Aspergillus, for instance, maybe one that a lot of people have heard of. Aspergillus would be the mold type. Under that mold type, there's 200 plus different species of that Aspergillus mold type, okay? Just like an animal, if I always say this to my clients, if there was a snake or a spider, that's just the type of animal. Now we've got 200 plus different species of that animal, just like most animals have multiple different species, right? Some of those species might be more hazardous than others. That is the mycotoxin. Mold type, mold species, mycotoxin, that's how it subdivides, and everyone has a different name. So you have Aspergillus, mold type, then you have Aspergillus, let's say, there's that second name there, okay? So let's just say whatever that second name is after Aspergillus. So when you look on an ERMI test, you see Aspergillus blank. That second name is the species type, okay? When I talk about testing, there's certain tests that just do the type, but not the species. The PCR analysis, like ERMI test, does the species type as well. Mycotoxin then is what the species byproduct is, that defense mechanism chemical byproduct is a mycotoxin, and that has a completely different name than all this. So when you're getting a mycotoxin panel in your body, it sometimes can correlate or be a complete connection to the mold type, but not always. It's a needle in a haystack trying to search for that specifically. Mycotoxins, if you're doing an in-body test, can be both environmental or food related, and I don't think that's talked about enough. That a lot of foods can have mycotoxin, presence within them, and now you have food ingestion with mycotoxins as well. So yes, environmental exposure, but plays a role, but we just don't know to what degree. And you can talk to all the labs and all the scientists and all the doctors about it. No one, unfortunately, yet can tell how much has been environmentally induced by inhalation or exposure there versus food. And there's probably a mix of both. It just depends on the person and their environment and their nutrition. So hope this makes some sense. Same thing here, is just another way of saying it. You got the spore type, you got the type of species, and then you have the mycotoxin byproduct. I need to make this clear. There are many different spore types. X number amount of spore types, X number amount of species within those spore types. So some spores only have like 10 different species in them. Aspergillus, penicillium have hundreds of different species. And then you got the mycotoxin byproduct, and not all the species produce mycotoxins, and those have wild names as well. So when you're doing testing, this is the big nuance. If you're gonna go test for a mycotoxin in your house, it is a very hard thing to locate, because you can only collect a certain amount of dust throughout the house, and you're hoping that you're collecting maybe a place where mycotoxins got either dispersed, moved around, a place, it's a much more difficult type of test to identify. That's why I like to go a little bit more broad in the home and say, if you inspect the home really thoroughly and you know that there's a mold source, let's just assume that all these could be a part of it. So let's just handle the mold types and mold sources rather than getting too caught up on the species type. Because yes, work with a practitioner on how to clear your body of some of these mycotoxins, but to try to match the exact mycotoxin with the exact source in the house, it's just next to impossible. We do not know always where our exposures come from and to what degree. So this is a very micro world. One final thing I'll say on testing: air samples and swab samples, for the most part, not all, but for the most part, are looking for the mold type, the spore type. They're not speciating the exact mold that's there. What the ERMI or other PCR, qPCR, type of test is that's a DNA analysis, and that is looking for the species, that's speciating it. But with the ERMI, they only have 36 different species, okay? Only 36 different species are being analyzed. So there's a lot of species and a lot of mold types that are not being analyzed on the ERMI. This is why I always caution people, don't put all your attention and focus on what the ERMI says alone, because what if you had 36 different species that you collected on that dust, but you never told the lab to analyze for those 36 species, and those 36 species could be at crazy, crazy high amounts. I just want to put it in perspective so we loosen our grip on kind of the emotional struggle and turmoil that can sometimes come with just what the ERMI is saying. It's literally collecting for 36 different species. Aspergillus by itself has 200 different ones, and all these other mold types have many, many different types of species and even different, mycotoxin production. So 36 is still very, very small. Those are an important 36 associated with water damage, so they're very important to give a look at, but it's not the entire picture. Neither are any of the tests. It's all pieces of the puzzle that we need to put together both logically and intuitively, and just do the best we can with what we know and what we can control, and know that there's so much that we don't know as well. So we're all learning together. Hope this makes some sense to break down all these subdivided words and concepts that are highly chemical and scientific, and the microbiology world is very much unknown still. This is what we do know, or portions of it. Hope it helped.